Hey there, this is Hunter with The Kingdom Business Owner. Today I'm talking with my good friend Chase Yoder, and we're talking about scaling our companies, but also integrating our faith into the marketplace. There's some good conversation here. There's some gold here. I guarantee you're gonna wanna tune in. You're not gonna wanna miss this one, so check it out. All right. Well, hey, welcome to the Kingdom Business Owner. I'm here with my very good friend, Chase Yoder. Man, honored to be here, honored to have you on the pod. And man, you're one heck of a guy. You're like a loose cannon in a lot of good ways, like pioneer, catalyst, but also just a good friend. So glad to have you on the podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So for those that don't know who Chase Yoder is, because there might be some people that do, there might be some people that don't. Give us like the 60-second overview of who you are, what you're about.
Yeah, nothing too special. Just a guy, married, 3 kids, man. So my wife and I have been married coming up on 12 years now, and got 2 daughters and a son, and run a handful of businesses. But yeah, everything that we do is all automotive. So between dealerships, body shops, fabrication, do a lot of fleet and commercial sales, and yeah, if it's automotive, I probably got my hand in it one way or another.
For sure. Yeah, you do. And you're also pretty humble, bro. Like, give us the magnitude of the companies that you run. How many employees do you have? How many businesses are there? Give us like the overview of that.
I'd lose count on the businesses, and I don't mean that in like there's so many, but it's there's some that are technically considered businesses, like the real estate business that we run everything out of, right? But you take those out of the equation, we're right at 10 businesses. We've got, out of those 10 businesses, we got 2 nonprofits that we run. And then, it fluctuates a little bit, but right around 300 people in the organization. So.
Yeah. It's a lot, man. It's a lot on your shoulders. And obviously you have other leaders on your leadership team. But you're doing a lot. And so I want to talk about a lot of things today, but, I know a lot of folks are wanting to scale to the point where, they have 300 employees and they can have nonprofits and they can do some of the big things in the community that you guys are doing. Talk to us about the journey, man, of, starting to take over the business, managing so many people, managing so many fires. Give us like a little bit more context.
Yeah. So, taking over the business, it wasn't something that's like, hey, look at me, I did all this, right? This was back in '83, my grandfather bought a dealership, right? And outside of that, we've grown everything. So that's between him, my dad. Now I'm starting to take over, right? So it's not like, hey, this is something I did all on my own. So I think, one, with that being said, and anyone who's looking at it, it takes time.
Yeah.
And it also takes, outside of resources, you're always gonna need resources anytime you're expanding, right? And you got to make sure that your fundamental core business is good, so that you can expand it into something else. But I think really what it is it's always cool or sexy to look at, like, hey, I want to look at this is a cool idea over here, and I want to chase this business, or I want to chase that. Really, I know the automotive industry, and so that's something I stick in, and I'm not going to adventure into something else, right? There's I've been hit up with a lot of opportunities of, hey, you should partner with me on this, or you should check this out. And it's like, as exciting as it is in the moment, I have to say, I'm probably going to butcher it better than be successful at it. So sticking with the things that you're good at, I think is one of the things you need to fundamentally say, hey, this is something that I'm going to stick with, right? One of the other things that we look at is, how is this going to impact our business down the road, right? Yeah. And so, what's fun is when you allow other people to bring their ideas in, because again, it's not, I did this.
Right.
Really, I haven't done a whole lot of the expansion. It's been other people's ideas that I've been able to act on, right?
Yeah.
So allowing people to have those ideas, and a great example would be like the fabrication shop.
Right.
And the whole reason that came out is we sell a lot of trucks that have flatbeds on them. And COVID just a few years ago, right? You know how this was. You couldn't source anything that you needed. So we had a truck that needed a bed. So this guy had just a cab with the chassis, right? No bed. It's basically useless to him. And the truck finally came in after he waited for 3-4 months. And then it sat waiting for us to get a bed for 3 or 4 months, right? So, I mean, this guy's just like, I need this for my business. I can't even use it.
Right.
And a technician in one of our shops overheard him kind of voicing his frustration. He wasn't mad at anyone. He was just frustrated at the situation, right? And this technician's like, do you trust me to build you a bed? And he's like, dude, at this point, I'll take anything, right? So he's like, okay. And this guy builds a bed, and the customer's like, that's the best bed I've ever had. And so we're like, well, shoot, is there an idea here? And he's like, I enjoy fabricating things. I enjoy doing this, to the point where now it's turned into its own standalone business, right? So really that's without that opportunity or someone's idea coming to light, I didn't wake up one morning and say, this sounds like fun. Let's do this, right?
Yeah.
So it's leaning on the expertise of the people around you, and then being able to see, hey, there's a little golden nugget here. Let's see what we can build out of this.
Come on. That's so good. I love that, man. And hearing stories like that get me so fired up. It's the reason I love capitalism so much. And I love innovation so much. I'm like, yeah, man, there's a hole in the market, so we're going to create a new business because it already aligns with our current business, and it's going to make money, and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that, man. Random question. If you had to start over, like you had to start over from scratch, no resources, what are you doing? What is Chase Yoder doing?
Oh, man. I would probably really be trying hard to be a rock star. That's
Dude,
like,
I love it.
I played guitar for 20 years, and man,
it.
There's two things that would have to work, right? Have no resources, one, and two, would not have met my wife, because if I had not met her, I would have tattoos all over.
Yeah.
Probably, much longer hair than I do. And even when my wife and I met, my hair was longer than yours.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, so
respect.
But
well done.
No, yeah. She makes me look a lot better than I did. So kudos to her.
That's hilarious, man. That's hilarious. Man, this is another question. As you've stepped into like different expansions, new businesses, shutting down businesses, starting new things, what do you feel like has been the biggest lesson as an entrepreneur, as a leader? What's the biggest lesson that you've learned along the way?
Oh man, there's a ton. One of the things that I'd say from my experiences that I've learned has been coming up through the business, because I already, like, from just getting in, I already kind of knew my trajectory, right? So I knew I was going to move from this position to this position to this position. So I kind of worked everything in the company so that I got a handle of it all. And so as I knew I was kind of coming up to that next role, I'd watch the guy ahead of me, and I'd get really cocky, like, man, I'm going to do this so much better than this guy. I hate that he does this. I hate how he does that. And look out, because when I get my chance, it's going to be leaps and bounds better. And then I'd sit in the seat, and it'd all fall apart. And I'm like, what in the world? And then I'd have to kind of rebuild it and learn everything on my own. I'm like, oh, well, that's why that guy did this. Oh, that's why that guy did that. And so it took me a while to really decide to learn from my peers or learn from those guys ahead of me, and take a chance to say, hey, I'm getting ready to step into this role. What's some of the advice you would give me? I think that's one of the big things that I've learned. And the other thing that I've learned, and this sounds contradictory, right? Because that was like the cocky side of me, of like being overconfident. And then the other side of me, I'd say really not having the confidence that I needed in a role. And so, like the role I'm in now, where I'm kind of starting to step in and run the companies. I mean, my dad's still in the organization. We've got a CFO with a lot of background in business and starting his own businesses. And I mean, he's been with some huge companies. And even our HR guy, really business minded, you know? So they had kind of been in their roles longer than I had been. So it was easy for me to sit back and say, man, I don't know if I really have an opinion to give. I just want to kind of sit back, shut up, and listen to these guys. And if something was transpiring that I didn't really think was going to work, or I didn't like the trajectory of it or anything like that, I didn't say anything, because I'm like, well, maybe I'm just too stupid to really know what's going on, so I'm just going to bite my tongue. And then I'd watch it unfold almost how I thought it was going to unfold. And then I kind of had to let that lesson happen to say, no, I do know what I'm talking about, right? I kind of had to watch some of those failures happen to say, no, I've got confidence
Yeah.
that I can have an opinion, I can have a seat at the table. So
It's good.
I mean, there's lessons I've learned in, all right, you got to humble yourself a little bit. And there's lessons I've learned where it's like, no, like you got to start believing a little bit more in yourself.
It's good, man. There's two things that I've always respected about you. A, you're a learner. Like you show up in any room. It doesn't matter how big the business is, how small the business is, whoever. If they're a leader, you want to learn from them. I love that about you. And then secondarily, I love that. And maybe it's because you're partly an 8 on the Enneagram, I'm assuming, right? Do you know what you are in the Enneagram?
I've taken so many of those things that I try to keep track of them. So
That's fair.
Sure, I'm an A.
Sure.
I think that sounds right.
Regardless, you're a challenger. Like you challenge the process, but also you feel comfortable with making the hard decision. And I think there's a lot of people in the Foundry, or a lot of people who are listening in, who have like struggled to make the hard decisions. Well, let's talk about that for a little bit. How have you gotten to the place in your career where you can just step into a room and make a hard decision and it doesn't faze you? At least that's my perspective of you in the marketplace. How have you gotten to that place?
Really the biggest thing of making the hard decision is knowing where you want to go and having the confidence of, I know what it takes to get here. And if you're unsure of the direction to get there, then you're going to be unsure on those hard decisions, right? Whether that's, the decision of like a process that you're going to do, or a personnel decision or anything like that, right? For me, process is always a pretty easy thing. It's like, no, I appreciate your guys' opinion, but this is what we're going to do, right? And I always like hearing the feedback, but if I know, hey, that's not going to work, here's the direction we're going, I've got to stick to that direction. And if I'm wavering on the direction we need to go, then I'm not going to be able to make hard decisions.
Yeah.
Now on personnel, that's tough, right? When you start bringing people into the equation, right? When you got to make a hard decision or have a hard conversation with somebody, that's tough. That's where it's, I would almost say you put on a front. It's the same rule applies, right? I need to know where I'm going. So I need this person to either get on board or jump ship, right? And it's all in how you have that conversation. If you have that conversation sternly, because it's like, hey, I'm not going to waver on where I stand, but you do it out of love, I think that goes a long ways. But at the same time, it's for me anyway, I almost have to put on a face, right? Because if I put on the face of, man, this is really hard, then they almost don't know if to take me seriously or not, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So if you and I are sitting here having a hard conversation, and I'm like, Hunter, dude, like you got to get your act together, or whatever that looks like, right? If I show too much emotion to it, or I show like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or I don't like that I said that to him, right? Then it almost discredits what I'm saying.
Sure.
Right. So you got to know why you're saying it, where you're going, and why that conversation is important. And when you know all the reasons why behind it, then it makes that conversation a lot easier to have. It still doesn't make it necessarily an easy conversation, right? But
it's good.
It makes it easier to get through the conversation.
Totally. Yeah, that's good, man. That's really good. Wait, when you are at the point where your back's against the wall, where you feel like, holy crap, this is tough. This is a hard situation. Things are falling apart in a business, or there's cash flow issues or whatever, and you're like, man, someone's got to take action here. This is difficult. Back's against the wall. What do you do? What's your go-to?
Bowl in a china shop. Like, I don't have much flight, so it's like, it's fight, and it's like, man, come hell or high water, this is going to happen. And actually, that's probably when I do more, right? And I'm more effective is when my back's against the wall on something. And, that's kind of the point we're at right now with a lot of our businesses. Like, there's a lot of tough things going on.
Yeah.
We've made a lot of changes. So there are some things where I'm like, okay, back's against the wall right now.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And it's this year you'll probably beat me at golf, because I don't think I'm going to get on the course much.
I absolutely will. It's a guarantee.
We'll see.
That's a guarantee. We'll edit this and timestamp it for sure.
But like when I do get into like backs against the wall, I get into like go mode, and it's funny because it's just like things are clicking so much faster, and I can handle more. Like when things are good, I feel like 5 things get on my plate, and I'm like, I got so much going on, and right now I got like 50 things on my plate,
right?
And I feel like I'm just flying through it, right? And it's almost enjoyable for me. Like I enjoy that challenge, and that's the hard thing is not everybody's like that.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to know when your back's against the wall. Is that how are you going to react, and how do you generate the outcome that you want when your back's against the wall, right? Sure. Like that's just my personality. But if my personality was like, oh shoot, I don't know what I'm going to do,
right,
then I better have people on my team that are the goers, and it's like, all right, I need you to go do this, I need you to go do that, and I'm going to go take a break for a little bit or whatever, right? But that's why you got to have your team built to your weaknesses.
Yeah.
You know,
where does being a follower of Jesus come into play when your back's against the wall?
Well, I mean, it's huge, but I think the thing that I look out for, my dad and I were talking about this, it's when business is really good, it's really easy to say, oh yeah, this is our business. We run this. It's look at us, right? When things are really hard, it's really easy to be like, God, this business is yours. We really need a miracle. We're giving this over to you, right? And give it back to him. And we never asked for this. It's yours. Take it. But it's, I look at it where it's, you really need to have that mentality of that business belongs to Christ ultimately.
Yeah.
No matter what, when times are bad, when times are good. And so I think, when times are bad, it's always a good reminder for me to bring Christ with me, right? To bring Jesus with me into everything that I do. And when I first started out in the business and I was selling, I don't know why it was easy. Like maybe I just had a different mindset. I don't know, but every time I'd walk out on the lot to talk to a customer, or anytime I'd bring him in and I was working the deal, I'd just say like a quick 5-second prayer, like, all right, God, give me the words to say. Or, hey, watch over this deal or whatever. I mean, something just little, but it was like I was taking him with me, right? Yeah. And then as I moved up through the business, it was kind of like, well, I've got this. Well, I can handle this. And so then when things get tough, it's been a good reminder of every meeting I walk into, every interaction, everything. It's like, hey, just go before me. Give me the words to say. Give me wisdom. Give me discernment. Give me direction. All of those things, right? So it's a... I almost like when things are hard because that's when it's a good reminder of that, right? Yeah. And it's and outside of that, I think that's when we get creative in business. I think that's when some of our best ideas and some of our things have come out when things are tough, right? So there's parts of it that suck, obviously, but there's a lot of good that comes out of it. And so you got to look at it. It's like, really, if you are going to be running a business, with the mindset of putting God at the front of it, you're going to go through good times and you got to look at it and say, okay, this is God blessing me. You're going to go through hard times and it's just got to be like, this is God teaching me. And you better be open to those lessons, right? Yeah. Like, hey, what does he need me to learn out of this?
It's good, man. So good. For the entrepreneur that's listening, that's in the thick of it, backs against the wall, they're maybe not built like you. They're maybe not built to thrive under the immense pressure of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, but they still feel called to do it. And they're also trying to bring God to the center of it while also wanting to build a profitable, excellent business. What do you say to that person? Backs against the wall. What do they do if they're maybe not built for the pressure?
If they're not built for the pressure, they just got to find someone who is, right? And that doesn't mean that that's a business partner. That doesn't mean that that's someone that's necessarily in the business. If they have that available to them, even better. If they don't, if it's I'm flying solo and I got to do this on my own, they've got to have somebody in their life that they can go to, that they can almost unload that pressure on. Yeah. And that person can kind of be a voice of reason, right? Yeah. Because really that's all it is. When there's chaos, if your mind goes to chaos, you just need something or someone to bring you back to like, okay, here's the 2 or 3 things you need to focus on, right? And again, if that's someone in your business and you have multiple people that at your disposal, right? That you have the opportunity to bring other employees around you, build your team that way, right? I know this is my weakness. I need to bring somebody in where that's their strength, right? That way you can play off each other really well. If you don't have that luxury, then it's find somebody that you can confide in of like, man, I'm about to pop. I need to just unload some of what's on my plate. Yeah. Help me out, right? but you got to have a team or someone who's coming alongside you.
That's good, man. Yeah, that's really good. I think one of the hardest parts of being a leader and an entrepreneur is being able to deal with the uncertainty of business. I know that it's one of my greatest weaknesses because I crave security. That I've had to deal with, even though I'm a risk taker and like I'm bold and I start things and like I still have this maybe even sinful part of me that is like I crave this the security of whatever it is. So how have you personally dealt with that aspect of like I don't know what's coming, like the unknown, the uncertainty of all the things that business offers?
Yeah, that's probably the dialogue that my wife and I have, right? Because I can't stand the certainty. Like I don't like the security of it, or like, hey, I'm gonna punch in and this is what I know I'm gonna do today.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it's almost like a foreign thought when someone's like, hey, I need to have security. What I'm like, well then you're in the wrong job. Right? Like go find something that they tell you what you're gonna make per hour and have at it. But I realize that not everyone's going to have that mindset, right? And that doesn't mean that you can't be an entrepreneur. You can't run a business. That doesn't mean those things. And I think my wife's been the biggest one that's opened my eyes to that, right? And so she's like, I come from a background of like, that's what you build everything on is security, right? You don't take risks and all that. And she's like, and I don't like to take risks, almost to the point where she's like, I don't want to know what's going on with the business. You handle it and you just tell me everything's good, right?
Yeah.
And now she's gotten more involved and she's completely changed her mindset where she's like, no, I want to come alongside you with this. But to the security side of it, right? I think that you have to have a little bit of risk and you have to have some of that, but in order to be an entrepreneur. But when you want the security and you crave the security, I think, if you don't have Christ at the center of it, then it's kind of like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Right. You're at that point, I would tell that person, you're in the wrong industry.
Yeah.
But the Bible does tell us that, God went before us. He's already won the battle. He's already done that. So if you can go into uncertainty with that mindset,
Preach.
Then it's, did you say preach?
I said preach.
Give me a pulpit. Let's go. But no, if you go into it with that mindset, then it's like, okay, there's nothing that can come against me that I can't overcome because I got God on my side, right? And that's that's ultimately like there's probably been one or two times where even though I like the uncertainty and I like this, there's been one or two times where I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, and I kind of freak out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And it lasts for 10 minutes, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. It's still a freak out, right? And that's what I always come back to is like, hey, battle's been won. God's already gone before you.
Yeah.
And if you think that like this is insignificant to him, then you're out of your mind, right? Like he's already gone and done way more than what this tiny business is going to face.
So good, dude. So good. And what that does, that perspective shift, is you can walk into any situation and it doesn't really even matter. The outcome doesn't really even matter because the identity is not in the outcome. The identity's in what God already did.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, man, it would be so difficult to not be filled with the Holy Spirit and running a business. Like if my identity was in my business, man, I'd be screwed, because that would be a painful place to be. So to have the perspective shift of, man, my identity is actually in what Jesus did, and it's not in anything else, because now I can walk in any situation, and I don't really care what the outcome is. I care what the outcome is, but it's not going to absolutely destroy me.
Right.
So, dude, that was gold and money, and for somebody that's listening, let's talk more about leadership and business. Man, there's a lot of people who are in the foundry or are listening that just want to grow their business. And I think that their hearts are pure. They want to grow it so they can pay their people really well, so that they can give more to charity, so that they can provide for their families better. What is that person? What's the number one thing that you would say to that person who's trying to scale their business? They maybe have a couple employees. They're maybe doing $500,000 a year. What's the number one thing that you would say, hey, that person's got to invest in X, Y, or Z?
Themselves. I mean, that's the biggest thing you can invest in, right? I mean, I'm not an expert in economics or anything like that, so I'm not gonna be like, hey, put it in crypto, do this, and then let that grow over time. I'm the worst guy to ask for that. But honestly, it's invest in yourself, because if really, I'm gonna give credit to my dad and my grandfather now, right? Like, they built the company to what it is now. I've helped grow it a little bit with the small time I've been there, but majority of the company is what they've laid out. If I wasn't equipped and hadn't poured into myself and learned and grown, and part of that's being part of the foundry, part of that's for a plug for you, part of that's,
appreciate it.
Yeah, reading books, learning from other people who have done it, in any way I can grow myself. If I hadn't done that, I would have stepped into this thing and just been like, my best option is for you guys to sell it and give me a cut, I mean, honestly, and
For sure.
So you have to be equipped to run something like that in order to grow it. And it's, it never changes. I'll sit in rooms with other dealers, and I've got a group that we meet with, 3 times a year, and someone will completely change around a part of their business. And everyone's like, how'd you do that? That's amazing. And it's 2 answers, or it's always the same 2 answers. It's people and process, right? So it's like,
yes,
are your processes in line, and do you have the right people on your team, right? And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
So good, man.
And you could have somebody who's really good and you really like them, but they're not getting to that goal. So that's where you got to check with yourself. Is my goal to really scale the business so that I can provide those things for my family, for my community, for other people? Or am I more where I want to hold on to this guy because I really have a soft spot for my heart? Neither one's a bad decision, but you got to know where you stand on it, right?
Yeah.
So if it really is to scale, then you really have to look at it, and you kind of have to take yourself out of the equation a little bit and say, for me to get there, what's the equation? I have to have these processes, and I have to have these types of people. All right, that guy checks the box, that guy checks the box, this guy doesn't. Can he check the box, right? And obviously you want to go in and see if you can work with that person or whatnot, or maybe they're the right person, wrong seat, all the things we've heard. But you really have to have the team around you to scale to get to where you want to go.
That's so good, man. What are the things that you've done to invest in yourself as a leader? Because I have seen you do that. I mean, like what are some of the like, are there conferences or specific books that you can even plug that have been game changers in your story?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's books, right? So between all the different businesses, I get a lot of windshield time. So I've always got a new audiobook that I'm listening to. And one of my favorites, and that I work on with the team, and I've, everyone who's a manager, well, most of our managers, we've gone through this, and we'll do a study on extreme ownership by Jocko Willings, right? And that's
game changer.
That's probably one of my favorites. And I like the way the book's written. It's engaging. I like the book in and of itself, but really just the context of like, hey, this is on me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, like we've got a couple guys in the organization that, I mean, you get me and them in the room, and it's almost like you can't find fault with anybody because one guy's like, wait, I screwed up. That's my fault. And I'm like, no, because I allowed it to happen. And the other guy's like, well, but I did this. So it's, it's cool when you have a culture of like everyone who's going to own, like legitimately own what they do and what they're responsible for, right? And then we can kind of sit there and say, all right, we all screwed up, so how are we going to change it, right?
So
that's been a really good one. As far as being a leader, God, I'm thinking of a ton of different books, but really I think the main thing is, do you surround yourself with other leaders, and do you watch what they do? And everyone's got a different leadership style, right? And so it's kind of finding what works for you, right? But it's watching people that you respect as a leader. And even if you respect that person as a leader, there's going to be things that you're like, I don't necessarily like that they do that.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll watch, things that I watch my dad do that I'm like, wow, he does that really well. I need to try to emulate that, or at least make it my own. I don't like that he does this. Why don't I like that? And how am I going to change it? Same thing with my grandpa. Same thing with managers that I've had as I grew up through the business, right? And saying, man, this guy was really good at accountability because he wasn't a jerk about it, But at the same time, when he walked up to ask me about, where I was at,
Yeah.
with my work, and I was behind, I knew I didn't want to have that conversation. He was never going to yell at me.
Yeah.
He was never going to, tell me I was an idiot or I sucked or anything.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was letting him down.
Yeah.
And so it's, I look at characteristics, and you start just pick little tools out of everyone's toolbox, right, and start to build your own. So I think, even though I love that book, I don't sit there and say like, oh, this is gospel. Guys, read this and you're a leader, right? It's, hey, pick the things out of here that you can take into the workplace with you, right? And then
cold.
It's fun to just kind of watch things that you've picked from somebody else. You watch someone else do it, and then when you get to utilize it, you're like, oh, I picked that up from this guy. That's kind of fun, So
Yes. Yeah, dude, that's gold. That's gold for somebody. I love that, man. I want to switch gears a little bit. You are a guy that you and your leadership team have hundreds of millions of dollars flowing in and out of your organizations. How do you get to the place where you don't let the money corrode your heart? I mean, I think that's one of the things that we as kingdom business owners have to constantly reflect on, because, man, we want to get to the point where like there is just money flowing in and out of us, and we're not holding it so tightly. But how do we get to the place where it's not grabbing a hold of our heart?
It's easy in our business because the margins are so thin. So we got a lot of money moving in and out, but we don't keep a lot of it. But no, it comes down to, I mean, I've seen people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars that are extremely humble, and they don't let it get to them.
Yeah.
And I've seen people that, make $100,000 a year, and they're going to be a jerk to somebody, and they think they've got it made. And it doesn't really matter the amount of the money, right?
It's good.
And this is a conversation, again, my wife and I have had, of just like, the Bible never says, it says don't make money an idol. It never says having money is sinful.
Yes.
It never says you are sinning if you have X amount of money in your bank account, right? Yes. And I've had that conversation with people where people ask me like, oh, well, I don't think it's right or biblical that, someone should make this type of money in whatever that dollar figure is, right? And, a lot of times they'll throw it out with pro athletes, and I'm like, well, based off of what?
Right.
Where in the Bible does it say thou shalt not make $1 million a year, right? I mean,
right.
it doesn't say that. And that's the biggest thing, really, is it's not the dollar figure. It's because it's different for everybody, right? Yeah. Someone might make $100,000 a year, and they're like, I just hit the jackpot. Where else am I going to make this? And to somebody else, they're like, I can't live on that, you know? So really, you can't look at a dollar figure. You have to look at where your heart's at. And are you idolizing that money? Are you not idolizing that money? And, then I think you got to take it a step further, and you got to look at, okay, maybe it's not the money necessarily that I idolize, but is it the things that money can buy me that I idolize? And
that's good.
That's one of the things that, I'll check myself on of, absolutely, I want to be able to give back to, charities that I believe in, or the community, or all of this, all these different things. But there's also a lot of things I'm like, man, if I made a little extra, I could go on this trip. I could have this car. I could have this. I could have that. Right. And again, not wrong to want those things, have those things. It's wrong when they consume you. Yes. Right. And kind of like you spoke earlier, if your identity was wrapped up in your business or your career, well, if your identity is wrapped up in your home, in your car, in your, whatever that thing is, your identity should be in Christ. And I think that's what you ultimately have to come back to. Doesn't mean I know there's definitely been times I've strayed from it, right? And it's like, oh, I'm doing good, and we just bought a new home, and I want to invite everyone over because I want them to see my home. Yeah. Well, no, I want them to see that I did something that I was impressed with myself on, right? And it's like, we all have those, right? And so then I always have to check myself. I'm like, why did I really want to throw this party? Did I want to spend time with people, or did I want them to see my new house, right? And then that's kind of like all right, thanks God. Thanks for the gut check, right? But I think for me anyway, it's that small, still voice, right? Just like the Bible says. And it's kind of one of those things like, hey, why'd you really want to do this?
Yes.
Why do you really want to make that kind of money?
Yes.
Why? And you got two options. You can block it out, or you can say, okay, let me reevaluate this a little bit, and it's,
Yeah.
again, I'm furthest thing from perfect at it, but
Yeah.
that's that little thing that you got to listen to of like, okay, where's my morals really lying
Yeah.
on this?
Yeah, dude, that perspective is gold, and I think it is biblical. Checking the heart. I mean, David asked God to search his heart, and I think that's what we're called to as kingdom entrepreneurs. Is God, search my heart? Like, really, what is my motive here? Because yeah, God does not call us to be like. There are certain people who are called to like live in poverty and like struggle and strife, and like that can be really God honoring. There's also other people who are called to manage a lot of wealth and like money flowing in and out. And so the reason that it's important to talk about money as a kingdom business owner is because it talks a lot about it. Like Jesus talks a lot about wealth. And so it's important for us as kingdom business owners, because there is so much coming in and out, that we have to constantly check our hearts. So I love that was your perspective, man, because I think that was money. Man, here's how we're going to land the plane. What do you feel like is the biggest thing that a kingdom business owner needs to know? I mean, you talk with a lot of them. You're connected to a lot of them. What do you feel like is the biggest downfall or the biggest lesson that a kingdom business owner needs to have?
Man, that's tough. Because there's a lot, and I really think as a as you're calling it, a kingdom business owner, we are called to a higher standard.
Yeah.
But we also kind of have this unfair advantage, right? And so when you got God on your side, it's kind of like, man, I can do things that nobody else could. And so I think it's having the confidence in that, but also the faith that God's going to provide that for you, right? So I think that's a big piece of it. I think that's really important. I could say, I'll make sure you're praying over your business. I think that's important. As I mentioned earlier, make sure you're taking Christ with you into work, into meetings, into conversations. I think that's important. Really, I think the most important thing is, and it really goes back to kind of what we're talking about, is knowing what you stand for, right? So if you're going to be a kingdom business owner, and you're going to say, hey, I'm putting this business that God's entrusted me with into his hands, I think the most important thing is to be confident in that and say, like, this is one thing I'm not wavering from. And, it's you and I have had conversations about, there's a lot of people who are Christian business owners, and it's like there's two different camps, right? I will only hire Christians because we're going to be of one mind, or I'll hire anybody because I can use it as a ministry, right? I'm not here to take a side on that or anything. I'd fall more into let it be a ministry. But regardless what camp you're on, you got to stand for it, right? And like, I'll sit in an interview with somebody and I'll say, hey, you don't have to believe what I believe.
Yeah.
But these are the values and the cores that we have in this business. Is that something you can get behind, right? And when that's your value system, most people are not going to be like, nope, like, hail Satan, I've got a different form of beliefs,
Sure.
right? Most people aren't doing that.
Right.
More times than not, people are going to line up with that belief. And I have had one person that left the organization because they saw that we donated to Focus on the Family. And this one individual was like, that goes against so many things that I agree with. And but that's the one time since I've been doing this that it was like those values cause that person to, look outside of our organization. But also, when I hired this individual, I was very upfront with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I could watch a lot of things happening in their personal life to where it wasn't an issue when I hired them, and then, a couple of years down the road, it became an issue. And that's for that individual to figure out, and that's fine. But I think it's being bold on, this is who I am as a business owner, and knowing that's why you do business, and who you do business for. And I think there's, there's a lot of fear of, well, I'm a Christian. These are the values I'm going to put out, but nobody else needs to know it. I'll pray over the business. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to do this, and it's like, no, when we hire people, we full on talk about it. Like, hey, these are the values. We're a Christian company, and you don't have to believe the same thing. But hey, if you do, every Monday we have a prayer meeting. Here's where we meet. Here's where we're doing this. Here's this. We've got chaplains, and they go around and they, will talk to the employees, and it's like whether, and it's fun to talk to the chaplains because sometimes they're like, hey, this person just needed a shoulder to cry on, and that's awesome. They're there for a resource. But then you get someone else that's like, hey, this guy's close. Like they're asking a lot of questions. They've come to church with me. They're, and it's like now all of a sudden your business isn't just a business. It's a ministry, right? And that's cool when you're like, we've seen over the years a couple different employees come to Christ through the chaplains or just how we've run business or all this stuff, and it's, so when you see those, then it's like you take the money out of it, you take all the, whatever that business can bring out of it, and you start to see that. And it's like, that's someone that a kingdom, or that's something that a kingdom business owner gets to see that somebody else doesn't get to see, right?
Yeah. Dude, that's so good. Man, there's so much gold in what you just said, but you guys are really doing it. Like, that's not just words that you're saying, man. This is like, decades of fruit that is through you and your family's legacy. That's real. Because there's obviously lots of different dishes that you can fall into. Like we put a cross on our logo, and so therefore we're a Christian company, but we're going to do subpar work, and that's not super God honoring. Mm-hmm. Or there's we just hire Christians. That can be tough at times. But I love the approach of we're going to do business really well, and we're going to do excellent work, and we're going to really take care of our people and our community through and through. And also, we're going to be deeply bold about who we are, and we're not going to falter, and we're not going to sway. Like, this is who we are, and this is the King that we serve. And I'm like, dude, that's money. And I think more people need to hear stories like that that can inspire them to stay strong, like stay the course, man. So, dude, super good. Any last thoughts before we close out?
Nothing, man. You kind of wrung me dry. You had tons of questions, so I appreciate it.
Well, dude, thanks for being on the pod. Love you, man, and glad that you were on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.